Hey everyone, and welcome to a deep dive that just might shift how you see the world.
Oh, I like that.
We're going to explore a specific meditation technique from the Vigyan Bhairava Tantra today. You ever feel like totally disconnected,
Yeah,
lost in your own thoughts, like a universe unto yourself?
all the time.
This technique we're exploring today tackles that head on.
Interesting.
It's called Meditation on Inner and Outer Worlds, and it's about dissolving that illusion of separation we so often feel.
It's a pretty radical idea when you really think about it.
I can imagine.
We're so used to this clear division between what's going on inside us.
Right.
Our thoughts are feeling those little itches we can't ignore.
Yeah.
Versus everything that's happening outside.
Yeah.
This meditation says,
Okay.
what if that wall we feel is actually a mirage?
Okay, I'm intrigued, but color me skeptical. How do you actually blur those lines?
Right.
It already feels like I'm juggling a million things in my mind on a good day.
It's not about adding more to your mental to-do list.
Okay.
So instead of seeing your inner world and the outer world as separate channels,
Okay.
imagine them both playing out on a single screen.
Okay.
You become aware of your breath,
Yeah.
a nagging worry about that deadline, the hum of the refrigerator, a sudden flash of insight,
I see.
all happening in the same space of your awareness.
So instead of trying to tune everything out to focus on one thing, we're actually expanding our awareness to include it all.
Exactly.
Okay.
The Vigyan Bhairava Tantra actually gives a really clear example.
Okay.
It says, try perceiving a thought arising in your mind in the same way you perceive the sound of a car horn outside your window.
I see.
They're both just experiences arising in your field of awareness.
That's a really interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
I can see how that might shift things, but what's the point of this mental gymnastics?
Right.
What do we gain by seeing everything as part of the same reality?
Think about it this way. If you're feeling disconnected or isolated, it's often because you're hyper-focused on the me channel
Okay.
with all its anxieties and inner chatter. This technique basically throws open the doors to a much larger space.
I see.
Suddenly, you're not just this isolated self anymore.
Right.
You're part of this much wider, interconnected field of experience.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal here.
Yeah.
It's like going from a cramped room to a wide open field.
Exactly.
But I have to admit, the skeptic in me is still wondering, does this really work?
Well, the Vigyan Bhairava Tantra isn't just some abstract philosophy.
Okay.
It's a practical guide to expanding your consciousness. And it lays out some pretty compelling benefits to this type of meditation.
Oh, interesting.
Not only can it dissolve that feeling of isolation we talked about, it can also enhance your empathy.
Empathy.
Yeah.
How does staring at a wall or focusing on my breath make me more empathetic?
It's not about the staring or the breath.
Okay.
It's about that fundamental shift in perspective. If you're no longer viewing others as completely separate from yourself,
I see.
if you're experiencing them as part of that same field of awareness, it becomes a lot easier to connect with their experiences.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
It makes sense, though. If you're constantly reinforcing the wall between me and everyone else, it's going to be harder to truly understand where other people are coming from.
Exactly.
So by breaking down that wall,
Wow.
we're creating a bridge to deeper connection, both with ourselves and with the world around us.
You got it.
Okay.
And there's more.
Oh.
The text also points to some pretty profound inner benefits.
Okay.
Reduced inner conflict.
Yeah.
A deeper sense of inner peace and clarity.
Okay, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Inner peace, just from paying attention to my thoughts and feelings?
Right.
I feel like I'm missing a step here.
Okay.
How does that even work?
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about everything playing out on one screen? Well, that includes all the mental noise, too. Instead of getting swept away by those thoughts and emotions, we're trying to fight them off, you simply observe them.
So we're not trying to change our thoughts and feelings, just observe them as part of the experience.
Yeah.
That sounds surprisingly difficult.
It definitely takes practice,
Okay.
but that's where the magic happens.
Okay.
When you stop engaging in that constant inner battle, you discover a space of calmness beneath the surface. It's like realizing there's a serene blue sky above all those stormy clouds. It's a bit like watching leaves float down a stream. You see them, you acknowledge them, but you don't try to grab onto each one or redirect their flow.
I'm getting a real let it be vibe from this, but honestly, a lot of meditation techniques I've tried in the past have felt like trying to herd cats.
Right.
Is this one really that different?
The difference lies in the focus.
Okay.
Instead of trying to achieve a certain state of mind, you're simply practicing awareness of whatever state of mind arises. And paradoxically, that acceptance is often what creates the space for peace and clarity to emerge. The Vigyan Bhairava Tantra suggests that this isn't just about feeling calmer.
Yeah.
It's about understanding your true nature.
Okay. Now we're getting deep.
Right.
What does that even mean, understanding our true nature?
When we stop identifying so strongly with our thoughts and emotions, we start to realize that we are not our thoughts. We're not our emotions.
Yeah.
We are the awareness that experiences them.
Okay.
That awareness is always present, even amidst the chaos of our inner world.
So it's like we're stepping back from the movie screen of our mind and realizing we're the audience, not the characters on the screen.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the more you practice this kind of observation, the more you cultivate a sense of spaciousness within yourself. Think of a time you got really caught up in a negative thought loop.
Yeah.
Remember that feeling of being trapped like you couldn't escape?
Oh, tell me about it.
Right.
We all have those moments where our minds just won't quit.
Now imagine approaching that same thought loop with this technique.
Okay.
Instead of getting pulled into the drama, you simply acknowledge it. Oh, there's that thought about my presentation again. Interesting.
Yeah.
You don't fight it. You don't feed it. You just observe it.
Okay.
What do you think might happen?
It's like you're taking away its power by refusing to engage.
Exactly.
I can see how that might help you detach from those thoughts and not get so swept away by them.
That's the key.
Okay.
And as you practice this, you'll find that those thoughts lose their grip. They'll still arise, but they won't have the same power to dictate your mood or your actions. You become less reactive.
Yeah.
Less at the mercy of your own mind.
It sounds like a recipe for a whole lot less stress, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
But I have to ask, does this inner peace translate to the rest of your life?
Right.
Or is it just something you experience during meditation?
That's the beauty of this practice.
Okay.
It's not meant to be confined to your meditation cushion. The more you experience this interconnectedness within yourself, the more it spills over into your interactions with the world.
So it's not just about finding peace in the quiet moments. It's about carrying that peace with you throughout the day.
Think about it. If you're less reactive to your own thoughts and feelings, you're going to be less reactive to things happening around you.
Right.
Instead of getting triggered by every little inconvenience or annoyance, you'll have more space to respond in a calm and thoughtful way.
That makes a lot of sense. You're essentially training your mind to be more resilient,
Yeah.
more adaptable.
Precisely.
Okay.
And that resilience can ripple out in so many ways.
I see.
It might make you a more patient listener, a more understanding friend, a more present partner.
And a less stressed out human in general, I'd imagine.
Absolutely.
But how do we actually bring this out of the theoretical and into our lives?
Right.
How do we actually practice this meditation on inner and outer worlds?
You know, it's simpler than you might think. You don't need any fancy equipment or years of training, just a willingness to observe your experience with curiosity and openness. Find a comfortable position, close your eyes if you like, and just notice your breath.
Okay.
Don't try to change it. Just become aware of the sensation of each inhale and each exhale.
Yeah.
That's your anchor, your home base.
Okay. That's familiar territory for anyone who's dabbled in meditation. Where does the outer world part come in?
Once you've established that connection with your breath,
Yeah.
gradually expand your awareness. Start to notice any sounds that are present.
Okay.
The hum of the air conditioner traffic, outside the chirping of birds. Simply acknowledge them without judgment.
So it's like we're tuning our attention to a wider frequency band.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
And then you can bring your attention to physical sensations. The feeling of your clothes against your skin, the pressure of your body on the chair or floor, maybe a tingling in your hand.
Yeah.
Again, just observe these sensations without trying to change them.
You know, I'm realizing I do this without thinking sometimes. When I'm walking my dog, for example.
Yeah.
I'm aware of the leash in my hand, the sounds of the city around me. And at the same time, I'm lost in thought about work or whatever is going on in my life.
That's a perfect example.
Okay.
You're already doing it. You just might not have been doing it consciously.
Right.
And that's the key to this meditation, bringing conscious awareness to this process of observing both inner and outer experiences simultaneously.
So what you're saying is instead of getting frustrated when my mind wanders from my breath, I can just acknowledge those thoughts as part of the landscape, like a passing cloud in my field of awareness.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then gently guide your attention back to your breath, your anchor point. Don't get discouraged if your mind wanders a lot at first.
Yeah.
That's totally normal.
Okay.
The key is to simply notice when it happens and gently redirect your attention.
Right.
The more you practice, the easier it becomes.
This is really resonating with me. But what about those times when it's not just random thoughts?
Right.
It's big, intense emotions that come up.
Right.
Sadness, anger, anxiety.
Yeah.
Those can feel impossible to just observe.
I hear you. Those big emotions can definitely feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
But even with those, you can apply the same principle.
Okay.
Instead of getting lost in the storyline of the emotion, try to simply notice the sensations in your body that accompany it.
I see.
Maybe it's a tightness in your chest, a clenching in your jaw, a warmth in your face.
Okay.
Just observe those sensations without judgment.
That sounds really challenging, but I'm willing to give it a try.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how this technique could be a real game changer, not just in my meditation practice, but in how I navigate the ups and downs of life in general.
It's about realizing that you're bigger than those thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
You have the capacity to hold them, to witness them, without being controlled by them.
It's almost like you're becoming your own inner observer, your own personal scientist studying the workings of your mind.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
And with practice, that observer becomes less reactive, more compassionate, and ultimately more free.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening conversation.
Oh, good.
I feel like my mind has been stretched in all the best ways. I can see how this one technique could address so many of the challenges we face in today's world.
Right.
That feeling of disconnect, the constant inner chatter, the overwhelm.
Yeah.
It's like a master P unlocking a whole new way of being.
It's definitely a powerful practice and one that's more relevant now than ever.
I agree.
In a world that's constantly trying to divide us, this meditation offers a path to reconnect, not just with ourselves, but with the world around us.
And with that profound thought, I think it's time to wrap up this part of our deep dive.
All right.
But before we go, I have one final question for you that's been swirling around in my mind since we started this conversation.
Okay.
You know how we've been talking about the Vigyan Bhairava Tantra and dissolving that boundary between inner and outer self and other... Well, if that boundary is really just an illusion, what does that mean for our sense of self? If we're not just these isolated islands of awareness, who are we?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
And I think it's one that each of us has to answer for ourselves through our own exploration and experience.
Yeah.
But if you're asking me to speculate,
Please do.
okay, that's what this deep dive is all about.
What if, instead of seeing ourselves as these separate bounded entities, we started to understand ourselves as something more fluid, more interconnected, like waves on the ocean?
Okay.
Each wave is distinct, but ultimately they're all part of the same vast body of water.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
So instead of being these fixed points in space and time,
Right.
we're more like expressions of a larger consciousness, a universal awareness that flows through all things.
That's the idea.
Wow.
And if we can tap into that awareness even for a moment,
it can completely shift our understanding of who we are and what our place is in this vast interconnected web of life.
it's both humbling and incredibly empowering at the same time, isn't it?
It is.
Humbling to realize we're not the center of the universe, but empowering to recognize our connection to something so much larger than ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the real magic of this meditation lies.
Okay.
It's not just about feeling better or being less stressed.
Right.
It's about awakening to a whole new way of seeing ourselves and the world around us.
This has been an incredible conversation. I feel like my mind has been stretched in all the best ways. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we sign off?
Just don't take my word for any of this. Explore it for yourself. Experiment with this meditation technique. See what resonates with you and let your own experience be your guide.
Wise words. And to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to take a deep dive into this concept of dissolving the boundaries between inner and outer worlds. See what happens when you bring this awareness into your daily life. You might be surprised by what you discover.
And who knows, you might even start to see the world with a little more compassion, a little more understanding, and a lot more connection.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Vigyan Bhairava Tantra. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.